All right, folks, grab yourself a seat and listen up, because I've got a bone-chilling tale to share, a true story that still sends shivers down my spine whenever I think about it. My name's Mike, and I'm here to take you on a journey into the darkest night of my life. It all started on a crisp autumn evening in the suburbs, where the streets were lined with houses adorned with Halloween decorations. My wife, Emily, and I had just finished dinner and settled onto the couch, ready to unwind after a long day of work. The rain was tapping softly against the windows, adding to the cozy atmosphere inside our home. As we nestled in, enjoying the warmth and comfort of our living room, we heard a faint sound of tapping at the back door, barely audible over the sound of the rain. Emily glanced at me, her brow furrowed in confusion, and I felt a chill run down my spine. We weren't expecting any visitors, especially not at this hour. I got up from the couch, my heart pounding in my chest, and made my way to the back door, Emily following close behind. I peered through the peephole, but all I could see was darkness and the faint outline of our backyard illuminated by the soft glow of the porch light. "Who is it?" I called out, trying to keep my voice steady despite the rising sense of unease. There was no response, just the steady drumming of the rain against the roof and the occasional gust of wind rustling through the trees. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the doorknob, unsure of what to do. Every instinct screamed at me to keep the door closed, to ignore whatever or whoever was on the other side. But curiosity got the better of me, and against my better judgment, I turned the handle and pulled the door open. A figure stood on the other side, shrouded in darkness, their features obscured by the hood of their jacket. My heart leaped into my throat as I took a step back, the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end. Emily let out a gasp of surprise, her hand flying to her mouth in shock. "Can I help you?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. The figure didn't respond, didn't move an inch. They just stood there, their presence looming over us like a dark cloud. I felt a knot form in the pit of my stomach, a sense of dread washing over me like a tidal wave. Something wasn't right, something was very wrong. Before I could react, the figure lunged forward, pushing past me into the house with surprising force. Emily screamed, a piercing sound that cut through the air like a knife as she stumbled backward, her eyes wide with terror. I reached out to grab the intruder, to stop them from advancing any further, but they were too fast, too strong. I watched in horror as they closed in on Emily, their movements smooth and deliberate, like a predator stalking its prey. I could feel my pulse pounding in my ears, my blood roaring in my veins, as I searched for something, anything, to defend myself with. But before I could react, the intruder was upon us, their hands reaching out, their intentions clear. Emily let out a strangled cry as she fought back, her nails digging into the intruder's skin, but it was no use. They were too strong, too determined, and we were no match for them. With a surge of adrenaline, I lunged forward, throwing myself at the intruder with all the strength I could muster. We crashed to the ground in a tangle of limbs, the impact knocking the wind from my lungs, but I fought through the pain, fueled by sheer desperation and the need to protect my wife. We grappled with each other, rolling across the floor in a frenzied blur of motion. The intruder was relentless, their movements calculated and precise, as they fought to overpower me and get to Emily. But I refused to back down, every fiber of my being focused on one goal: to keep my wife safe, no matter the cost. In the midst of the chaos, I heard Emily's voice, a distant echo in the back of my mind, urging me to fight, to survive. And so I fought with everything I had, pushing through the pain and exhaustion, fueled by a primal instinct to protect the woman I loved. Minutes felt like hours as we struggled against each other, the sounds of our fight echoing through the house like a symphony of terror. I could feel my muscles burning, my breath coming in ragged gasps, but I refused to give up, determined to see this nightmare through to the end. And then, just when it seemed like all hope was lost, The sound of sirens pierced the night, their wail a welcome relief in the darkness. The police burst through the front door, their guns drawn, their voices commanding the intruder to surrender. With a final burst of strength, I managed to overpower the intruder, pinning them to the ground as the police rushed in to apprehend them. Emily collapsed into my arms, her body trembling with exhaustion and relief, as tears streamed down her face. We had survived a night of terror, a battle for our lives, and emerged victorious. But the scars, both physical and emotional, would linger long after the wounds had healed, a reminder of the darkness that lurked just beyond the safety of our home. In the days that followed, we took comfort in each other's arms, finding solace in the knowledge that we had faced our greatest fear and emerged stronger for it. We installed a state-of-the-art security system, enrolled in self-defense classes, and vowed to never again take the safety of our home for granted. So if you ever find yourself alone in the dead of night, the silence broken only by the sound of rain and the pounding of your own heart, remember our story. Trust your instincts, listen to the warnings of your loved ones, and above all else, never underestimate the power of the darkness that lurks in the shadows. Hey all, gather round, cause I got a tale that'll make your blood run cold. My name's Mark, and I'm here to spin a yarn about the scariest night of my life, a Texas-sized home invasion that still gives me the heebie-jeebies just thinking about it. It was a muggy summer evening down here in Texas, the kind of night where the air hangs heavy and thick, making it hard to breathe. Me and my wife, Lisa, had just finished up dinner and settled in for the night, looking forward to a little peace and quiet after a long day's work. Our little slice of paradise was tucked away in the heart of the Lone Star State, surrounded by nothing but miles of sprawling ranchland and big, open skies. We like to think of it as our own little slice of heaven, a place where the stars shone bright, and the nights were filled with the sounds of crickets chirping and coyotes howling in the distance. But that night, there was something in the air, something dark and foreboding that sent a shiver down my spine. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but it was there, lurking just beyond the edges of our cozy little home. As we settled in for the night, the house creaking and groaning in the summer heat, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Call it intuition or just plain old-fashioned Texas stubbornness, but I knew in my gut that trouble was brewing. And trouble, as it turned out, was headed straight for our front door. It started with a soft tapping that barely registered above the hum of the air conditioner. At first I thought it was just the wind rattling the shutters, but when it persisted, growing louder and more insistent with each passing moment, I knew something wasn't right. Lisa shot me a look, her eyes wide with apprehension, as we exchanged a silent understanding that we were no longer alone. I rose from the couch, my heart pounding in my chest, and made my way to the front door, every nerve in my body on high alert. Peeking through the peephole, I saw nothing but darkness, a void stretching out into the night, swallowing up everything in its path. But even as I stared into the abyss, I could feel eyes on me, watching, waiting, biding their time. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice steady despite the rising sense of dread. There was no response, just the sound of my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. I hesitated, my hand hovering over the doorknob, unsure of what to do. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to stay put, to lock the door and pretend like nobody was home. But curiosity got the better of me, and against my better judgment, I turned the handle and swung the door open. The sight that greeted me on the other side sent a chill down my spine, a figure, cloaked in shadow, standing just beyond the threshold. My breath caught in my throat as I took a step back, my mind racing with 1,000 different scenarios, each one more terrifying than the last. "Can I help you?" I asked, my voice coming out in a hoarse whisper. The figure didn't respond, didn't even acknowledge my presence. It just stood there, unmoving, a silent sentinel in the night. I felt a bead of sweat trickle down my spine as I stared into the abyss, searching for some sign of life in those dark, empty eyes. And then, without warning, the figure moved a blur of motion that sent a shockwave of fear rippling through me. It lunged forward, pushing past me into the house with an unnatural speed and strength that defied explanation. I stumbled backward, my heart pounding in my chest, as the intruder advanced into the living room. Lisa let out a scream, her voice a piercing sound that cut through the air like a knife, as she backed away from the intruder, her eyes wide with terror. I moved to intercept the intruder, to protect my wife and our home from whatever dark force had descended upon us. But before I could react, the intruder was upon me, their hands reaching out with a strength that belied their size. I fought back with everything I had, throwing punches and kicks in a desperate bid for survival. But the intruder was relentless, their movements swift and precise as they countered my every move with an eerie calmness that sent a chill down my spine. During the chaos, I heard a voice that sounded like it was coming from 1,000,000 miles away. It was Lisa, shouting my name, her words a lifeline in the darkness. I felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through my veins as I fought to break free from the intruder's grasp, to reach my wife and keep her safe from harm. But just as I was about to break free, everything went black. When I came to, I was lying on the floor, my head spinning and my body aching from head to toe. The intruder was gone, vanished into the night without a trace, leaving behind nothing but the echoes of our struggle and the shattered remnants of our once peaceful home. I staggered to my feet, my mind reeling as I took in the scene before me. Furniture lay overturned, belongings strewn about like debris in the aftermath of a storm. But the most chilling sight of all was the look of fear in Lisa's eyes as she huddled in the corner, her hands trembling as she clutched onto the phone. I rushed to her side, my heart breaking at the sight of her terror-stricken face. We held onto each other tightly, finding solace in the warmth of each other's embrace as we struggled to make sense of what had just happened. The police arrived soon after, their sirens wailing in the night as they raced to our rescue. They combed through the wreckage, searching for any clues that might lead them to the intruder, but there was nothing, no fingerprints, no footprints, nothing to indicate who or what had invaded our home that fateful night. In the days that followed, we tried to piece our lives back together, but the trauma of that night lingered like a shadow, haunting our every waking moment. We installed security cameras, doubled the locks on our doors, and even considered moving to a safer neighborhood, but no number of precautions could erase the memory of what we had endured. And yet, amidst the darkness, there was a glimmer of hope, a renewed appreciation for the precious gift of life and love. We held on to each other tighter than ever before, finding strength in our shared resilience and determination to rebuild what had been broken. So if you ever find yourself alone in the dead of night, the silence broken only by the sound of your own heartbeat, remember our story. Trust your instincts, stay vigilant, and above all else, hold on to the ones you love, for they are the light that guides you through even the darkest of nights. Every creak, every shift of the house felt like a whisper of impending doom. But I brushed them off, attributing them to the settling of an old structure. Little did I know, those whispers were just the prelude to a night of terror that would haunt me forever. It was a stormy night, the kind that rattles windows and sends chills down your spine. The rain beat against the roof like an army of unseen assailants, a fitting backdrop for the horror that was about to unfold. I had just settled into bed, the covers pulled snugly around me, when I heard it the faintest of sounds, like footsteps creeping through the darkness. At first I convinced myself it was just my imagination running wild, the storm playing tricks on my mind. But then it came again, clearer this time, undeniable. Someone was in the house. I lay there, frozen, every nerve in my body on high alert. My heart pounded in my chest, a relentless drumbeat that drowned out all other sounds. I reached for my phone, fingers trembling as I dialed 911. The operator's voice was a lifeline in the darkness. a calm presence amid chaos. There inside I whispered, my voice barely audible over the pounding of my heart, "Please send help." As I spoke, the unthinkable happened. The sound of glass shattering from downstairs shattered the fragile illusion of safety I had clung to. They were in the house, and there was nowhere to hide. I crept out of bed, moving silently towards the door. Every creak of the floorboards echoed through the empty house, a grim reminder of my vulnerability. I peeked out into the hallway, my breath catching in my throat as I saw the shadowy figures moving through the darkness below. I retreated back into my room, heart pounding in my chest. Panic threatened to consume me, but I forced myself to focus. I needed a plan, a way to survive this nightmare. I glanced around the room, searching for anything I could use as a weapon. My eyes landed on the window, a small glimmer of hope in the darkness. If I could just make it outside, I might have a chance. I moved quickly, silently unlatching the window and sliding it open. The rain poured in, cold and relentless, but I barely noticed. All I could think about was escape. I climbed out onto the roof, the tiles slick with rain. Every step was a risk, a dance with death in the darkness. But I pressed on, driven by the desperate need to survive. I reached the edge of the roof, peering down into the darkness below. It was a long way down, but I had no choice. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the jump. But before I could leap, a hand reached out of the darkness, grabbing hold of my ankle with a vice-like grip. I screamed, the sound lost in the howling wind. I kicked and thrashed, desperate to break free, but it was no use. The hand pulled me down, dragging me back into the darkness. I fought with everything I had, but it was hopeless. They were too strong, too determined. And as they dragged me back into the house, I knew that my nightmare was far from over. The whispers of the shadows echoed in my mind, a chilling reminder of the horrors that lurked in the darkness. In the end, I was just another victim, another casualty of the darkness that had invaded my home. And as I stared into the abyss, I knew that I would never escape its grasp. The shadows had claimed me, body and soul, and there was no going back. So if you ever find yourself alone in the darkness, remember my story. Remember the whispers of the shadows and the terror that lurks in the night. And pray that you never have to face the horror that I did, that you never have to feel the cold grip of the shadows closing in around you. For once they have you in their grasp, there is no escape, only darkness. The shadows seemed to dance around me, mocking my futile attempts at escape. Their whispers grew louder, filling the air with a cacophony of malevolent murmurs. I struggled against their grip, but it was like fighting against it. They dragged me through the house, their movements swift and purposeful. I tried to scream for help, but the sound caught in my throat, choked off by the suffocating darkness. Every room we passed seemed to pulse with a sinister energy, as if the house itself were alive, feeding off the fear that permeated its walls. Finally, they reached the basement, a place I had always avoided, even in the light of day. The air grew thick with dread as they forced me down the creaking stairs, each step echoing like a death knell. The basement was a labyrinth of shadows, a maze of forgotten nightmares. They threw me to the ground, pinning me down with a strength that defied reason. I struggled against them, but it was like fighting against a force of nature. And then they spoke a chilling whisper that seemed to emanate from the very depths of the darkness. "You belong to us now," they hissed, their voices a twisted symphony of malice. "You are ours to command, ours to devour." I screamed, a primal sound of terror that reverberated through the empty space. But it was too late. The shadows closed in around me, enveloping me in their icy embrace. I felt myself slipping away, consumed by a darkness so deep that it seemed to swallow me whole. And then there was nothing. No sound, no light, no sensation. only an endless void stretching out before me like an eternity of emptiness. I don't know how long I remained there, trapped in that suffocating darkness. Time seemed to lose all meaning, each moment blending into the next in a never-ending cycle of despair. But eventually, something stirred within me, a spark of defiance that refused to be extinguished. With every ounce of strength I had left, I fought against the darkness, clawing my way back to the surface. It was a long and arduous journey, filled with pain and fear, but I refused to give up. I had survived the shadows once before, and I would do so again. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I emerged from the darkness, gasping for air as if I had been underwater for far too long. The basement was empty, the shadows gone, but their whispers lingered in the air like a haunting melody. I stumbled out of the house, my body battered and bruised, but alive. The storm had passed, leaving behind only the faintest hint of rain in the air. I collapsed on the ground, tears streaming down my face as the weight of what had just happened crashed over me like a tidal wave. But amidst the pain and the fear, there was also a glimmer of hope, a small, stubborn flame that refused to be extinguished. I had faced the darkness and survived, and as long as that flame burned within me, I knew that I would never truly be lost to the shadows. So if you ever find yourself alone in the darkness, remember my story. Remember the whispers of the shadows and the terror that lurks in the night. But also remember that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope. And as long as you hold on to that hope, you can never truly be consumed by the darkness. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future videos. Don't forget to like and comment below. See you in the future video.